Good evening. How are you all? Hoping that this is all live. I'm Belinda Hayes, the spiritual teacher, and I'm live on the Spirituality Show with the Spiritual Events Directory. So it is Wednesday evening, 8:30, which means that you've got me for the next hour, which is really wonderful and exciting. So it's always a pleasure to be here on this wonderful evening with you all, and I really do love the time that we get to spend together. So for all of you guys, I'm just going to give you a few moments to jump on. How are you, Patricia? Good evening. Thanks so much for tuning in. And I see Therese is on there from New Zealand as well. So thanks. I love how we can all connect from all around the world this evening. How are you, Leanne? Great to see you. And Janelle, thanks for joining us. Hey, Rena. As I mentioned, I'm Belinda Hayes, the spiritual teacher, and I'm coming live for an hour. And I wanted to talk to you guys tonight about energy. Energy. I know it's a very big subject, but we're going to cover so much about it, and it's going to be amazing. See, Trees is just saying it's 10:30 in New Zealand. That's got to be way past your bedtime. It would be way past mine. So bless you for tuning in. Lovely. I love connecting with each and every one of you. So hey, Tanya, and hey, Janelle. There she is. I thought I saw Janelle jump on. So it's going to be an amazing night. And we have, as I said, I've got so much that I wanted to chat to you guys about. I have been receiving some absolute gorgeous messages from each and every one of you, just saying how much you've been enjoying the information that I've been sharing with you all, how some of you have even had their life already kind of change and shift as a result of some of the things that you may have heard, or one particular thing that's really resonated with you guys, and you have taken that and already started to make change in your life. And I just wanted to mention that, and I wanted to acknowledge that, and I wanted to share my gratitude to each of you for reaching out and providing me with some feedback and some love. That's always appreciated. But also I wanted to acknowledge you guys and the effort that it takes, and the way that when you listen to these lives, any one of these shows, how when you take that one thing that resonates with you and make change in your life, just how magical your life can be. I remember when I did my very first live with the Spiritual Events Directory, and I mentioned your life from here on in, or a year from now, can be very different if you let it be. If you take this newfound knowledge, or if it's not new for you, if you take this remembered knowledge and actually action or to make change in some way. So I'm really excited to see some of you have been doing that. And I'm really looking forward to connecting with more and more of you. So a huge hello there to Angela. Magdalena's back on. Jodie's already talking. Energy is a hard thing for a type 1 diabetic. And I couldn't agree more with you there, Jodie. So we're definitely going to talk more tonight about energy in the body, what it is, where it's found, the science behind it, of course, the science behind it, just so that you guys can understand the how of what's going on, and really start to understand when you have reactions in your body, or you're having moments. Some of you may be going through trauma at the moment. Some of you may experience trauma in the coming week, so that you can actually begin to understand where that energy is, how we can use it, how we can shift it. And for me, my number one goal, my mission statement, everything I do is to enrich people's lives with their own version of happiness. And the only way you can do that is through knowledge, through understanding. And so that's what I'm hoping to offer you, and will be offering you. So a huge hello. I can see Nigel's jumped off. Excuse me there. I'm just going to unplug. Oh, blocking the camera. My phone keeps going into charge mode. Let's hope that doesn't drop out on me there. So Teresa's saying, I need positive energy tonight, please, Belinda. First time watching you. Well, I am sending you abundant positive energy there, Therese. So I hope that you begin to feel that as the evening goes on. But even more importantly, I'm going to get you to tune into your own, which will be absolutely amazing. So hey there, Katarina. Whole bunch of you on tonight, so this is exciting. I can see Christine's jumped on, so I want to get into it. I want to talk to you guys so that we can use the full hour tonight. So what I wanted to do is kind of break down what energy is. All right, it's going to be a little bit of science, so bear with me, trust me, bear with me, it's worth it. But, when we talk about energy, especially as light workers or in this spiritual space, and I do this because, I don't like putting what we do in a box, because we all have the ability to do it, okay? And I don't think it needs to be called spiritual or spirituality. It just is. But for want of a term, so everybody understands, this is certainly what we can, label it so that we can move forward. So, when we refer to energy, there are so many different forms of energy that can be referred to, okay? So one of the main ones that we often hear about are what we call the chakras, okay? We all hear about the word aura, or you may have heard the word aura, and then some of you may even be aware of a thing called meridians, or other times they're called like acupuncture points is one word that's used for understanding or explaining meridians. So I wanted to break down how they all interact, how they all work, all right, and then talk about things like emotions and healing and how that's all connected with energy centers of the body. So let me start with what most people are aware exists, and that is called the aura, okay? Now the aura, or otherwise known as the electromagnetic field that exists outside of our body. Okay, so it's the one, if you imagine from your skin out, okay, what's happening here is what we recall, or what is referred to as the aura. So when we're talking about the aura, or we're connecting into the aura, it's important to know that there's different fields and different layers of the aura that then connect into us. Okay, and I won't go into huge details. I could almost spend an entire hour just talking about that. But what I really want to get across more so is that our aura is the one that's constantly interacting with the external environment around us. Okay, so we have this incredible things within us, okay, within our cells, not just us, but every single cell that is within a matter, okay, is made up and has within it a thing called a biophoton. And biophotons, and this is the exciting part of why light workers and how we say we are light beings, biophotons actually emit, transfer, and communicate using light. All right. And the reason that is important is because that light that is being given off or being emitted from these biophotons within our cell can actually be captured. Some people can see it. These are those people that can see auras, etc. Hey, Loz. And other people, or in particular science, because of these biophotons, can now start to actually assess it and study it. So there's some amazing studies being done in Seoul and Korea at the moment around biophotons, and in particular their connection within our own DNA. But more importantly, how cells send biophotonic impulses or biophotonic light to each other to communicate, and how they then, when they receive that biophoton or that light, okay, when they receive that light, how it interacts with the cell and makes change. And even more importantly, they have taken it one step further, where they are now studying intention. And we've talked, if you haven't watched or seen my live, I know a few of you are on here for the first time, go back and check out some of my previous lives. I think it was the third one on here. We talked about intention and about the power of positive thought, and about how intention affects and changes our molecular structure. So if you're sending something and the intention behind that can affect the cell, and there's this biophotonic, communication occurring, then obviously our intention and our thoughts are actually going to change and regulate those biophotons as well. And that's important, everything I'm telling you, because our aura is what is being transmitted out from us outside of our body. And we kind of, if you could imagine it, okay, it would have this kind of layered effect all around us. Kind of, there's one layer, two layer, you can go, 13 odd layers, and each of those layers relate to a different chakra or point of our body. And we walk around all day with our aura kind of extended out from us. And so whenever we move towards another person, we might just brush past them. In particular, this can play a big role if you sit in close proximity to people all day. I know in some workplaces you can often be near a co-worker, for example, cubicle type space workplaces. And our aura is constantly interacting with the aura of other people. This, you know, a lot of people feel energized in nature, many reasons. We've talked about Schumann resonance and Schumann energy of the earth and ionization and all sorts of things. But one of the other reasons is because everything's giving off this aura, this biophotonic light is being emitted outside of the body, okay, or outside of the object, such as a plant. And when our biophotonic light then interacts with that one, then it will actually create an interaction in our auric level. So the aura is kind of this this constant energy that is fluctuating from us but around us at any given time. It's the easiest way to kind of describe it. And why that's very important is that when we are engaging with somebody or when we're in connection with somebody, we can actually have our aura impact their aura or vice versa, or they will interact together. And when I mentioned that biophotons have the ability to communicate to each other, all right, when there is emissions of light being sent out from a cell, us being the cell, I'm using us as examples for this, all right, when it's information being sent out, they'll communicate with each other, okay? And so that's constantly happening. And the thing with the aura is that it can fluctuate and it can shift and it can change based on this communication that we're constantly receiving. And this is why, you know, when we're in somebody else's energy or when we're around somebody, we can start to feel these kind of high and low emotions that come from nowhere. Sometimes this can be if you're intuitive or you're empathetic or you're clairsentient. If you got a chance to watch my live all about clairs and understand that, then you might be picking up on their energy. Or it may be that whatever energy they are actually putting out is actually starting to impact your own energy because their aura and your aura are communicating the entire time you're together. You hear that concept or that term that's used a lot of the times, energy vampire. Don't really like that term because we all have the ability to give off energy and keep our own energy quite high and vibrating nice and high. But there are some people when you're around them that are just really draining. You feel drained, you feel exhausted afterwards. And a lot of that can come from that vibration of what's occurring around their aura and how yours is communicating and interacting with that. So it's important to note that because when you are, and you know, I mentioned the co-worker space, when you're around somebody constantly and your aura is constantly interacting with theirs, and let's say they are dealing with something energetically, you might not even be aware. Maybe they've got trauma going on at home, okay? Or maybe they're experiencing trauma at home and that's constantly sitting in here, you know, that internal energy, then you can actually, their aura can be communicating with yours and actually kind of really reducing your energy or bringing your vibration down if theirs is quite low too. And this is where we start to really, a lot of people will start to kind of start feeling down and they hate doing that. And, you know, they get into that blah space. All right. The thing with auras, though, is that they can fluctuate high again just as quickly. They kind of just constantly go up and down. People that can see auras, you know, if you've ever met anyone that can do that, they say, oh, gee, your aura is so blue today, or your aura is so green today, or whatever it might be based on what's going on. And they have the ability now, if you've ever had this done, or if you ever get a chance to do it where they can photograph your aura. Because at the end of the day, while you're giving off biophotonic light, you know, emissions, one of the things you're also always doing, okay, is that we are giving off energy. And of course, all energy has a frequency, all right? And in this case, when they photograph your aura, they actually give off a what they call the electromagnetic field, is what, you know, science calls what's happening around us. And they can photograph that. They can send an impulse through your body to actually measure, and then we can actually assign a color to what each of those energetic areas or fields around your body are. So, you know, you can go and get your aura photographed and you can see, oh, wow, it's red here and green here, and I'm giving off this, you know, blue around here or whatever it may be. They, as Kathy's saying, she's had her aura photo taken. It is fascinating, and there are people and places that do that. There's actually amazing exercises that you can do to begin to, you know, if your intuition or you're working in that space, you can strengthen actually seeing auras. It's something that you can work on to try and teach yourself to start seeing and really picking up that biophotonic light with the naked eye. Quite hard to do, but certainly can be done. And so or it's important to note, because, you know, you think about standing in a place, and I've mentioned it before, things like hospitals and airports and libraries and those places that are often filled with quite a lot of emotion. And one of the places I feel this, and I often feel this a lot, is things like funerals, where that collective aura kind of builds and grows, you know, because we interact with somebody and then their aura spreads, you know, as well. And of course, this kind of interactive aura gets bigger and bigger and bigger until we're all sitting within this one, it's almost what I call like this auric bubble. And we all kind of become one in that moment. And this is why things like, if you've ever done, for some of you, you may be religious and connect with religion, so things like prayer circles. For me, it's healing circles, you know, actually getting in groups and doing healing circles, and you can create that big auric bubble of green healing light and energy, and you can really expand that and make that super powerful and strong. So there's ways that you can actually use your aura to assist your energy and focus your energy. One of the ways I mentioned before was obviously intention. Intention and thought. I kind of drill it home every time, don't I? Start to sound like a broken record after a while, but it when we sit with a specific intention and send out a color or a vibration into our aura, then we can start to actually change that electromagnetic field. Not only that, but we're telling our cells within our body, each of our cells, to send out biophotonic signals of light that will then communicate further and further and further out. And so that will actually become the new aura that we are projecting. You know, I was just reading a comment that came up on the screen there from Tanya saying, I work in a psych ward and I pick up a lot. You absolutely would, you know. Each person has a particular aura that they are giving off, and it will fluctuate and shift and change over time. And one of the things we need to be aware of is that sometimes if we are feeling a certain way, and again, I'm going to come back to emotion a lot tonight when we're chatting, because emotions really direct kind of where our energy goes and how our cells give off these biophotonic signals. You know, but when we're feeling a particular way, we need to tune into ourselves and find out what's going on in our bodies, and then try and work out, you know, where and in which energetic field is this coming from? Is it external? Is it environmental? You know, is it something mental? Is it something spiritual going on for me, so that you can then begin to control that energy? I've got Loz on here saying she's able to see the first layer. I think it's etheric. I see it on objects, trees, and people, but I've not seen color yet. So Loz, that's extremely exciting. Keep working on that. I know my ex-partner, there was activities where, and this, I keep holding up my hand when I say this, but the reason being, they say if you hold your hand in front of a really white wall, or you get a piece of white paper, and stare at your hand for a certain amount of time, you can actually begin to see an outline around it, and then a color can slowly form. And that's an intuitive exercise for beginning to see aura, especially if you're channeling things like you know, Reiki energy or something like that through those palm chakras. It can be quite awesome to see what comes up. I have had moments where I've seen auras or seen colors, you know, out the corner of my eye as somebody's come past. So yeah, it's certainly possible. It's certainly not a strength or something that you know, I'm not clairvoyant. It's not my strongest clair. I'm clairsentient. I'm very much a feeler. So, but those that are clairvoyant, certainly, you know, it's not surprising that they can see auras. So Shelley's asking there, when your aura gets heavy and you feel overwhelmed, what's the best and easiest way to clean your aura? So I was mentioning there about intention and actually sending a particular vibration or intention out. But before I get really into that question, Shelley, so stay tuned, because I want to talk about the other energy centers that are all connected within us, because there's actually 3 levels of energy in our body. The first is the aura, the second is our chakras, and then the third is our meridians. So the aura is the outside projection of that biophotonic emission, all right, that electromagnetic field that's outside of our body that's constantly interacting with those around us. Then the second level of energy in our body, or the second area, not level, sorry, the second area of energy in our body is our chakras. Now, you may have heard this word before. Some of you who are on here may know what a chakra is, some may not. I encourage you to go back and have a listen to my first live if you've got time to get more deeper into what each of the chakras are. But there's 7 main chakras on our physical body. There are more than that. There's 13 chakras in total that extend above our head and below our feet as well. And then minor chakras, like I mentioned, palm chakra, higher heart, a couple of others. But without confusing you, there's 7 main areas of our body of chakras on our physical body. And the reason we know this, the we being the collective we, the scientific world knows this, is these biophotonic emissions that occur, okay, have been identified to be collated and collected in much more higher numbers in these particular areas. And they tend to move, that, it's a Sanskrit word. Chakra is a Sanskrit word meaning wheel of light. And that's essentially what's happening. These biophotonic light, they're moving in a clockwise direction in our bodies in a much more increased number in these particular points in our body. Okay, so that's how science identifies the chakras. All right, but what they've come to realize is that these emissions that are being given off within these areas are responsible for certain things that occur within our body. So it's almost like a neural, we have this neural connection, or the way our brain will tell our body, my brain's telling my hand to move and wave at you right now. But these biophotonic emissions are occurring and when they do from these, let's say this is the one that's firing or that is being emitted, then it's actually being responsible for a certain part of the body. And so we've got what we call our crown chakra here, okay, the top of our head. We have our third eye chakra, which is between our eyes here at the top of our forehead. We have our throat chakra, which is right between those collarbones here. We have our heart chakra, which is in the middle of our chest, okay, not to be mistaken with the heart, but the heart chakra. Then there is the solar plexus chakra, located between the middle of our chest and our navel, our belly button. So in the middle there, okay, that's that kind of top of the tummy stuff, bottom of the liver. And then below our belly button and between our pubic bone, so in between those areas, is our sacral chakra. And then eventually right down on the top of that pubic bone, we have our base chakra, or our root chakra as it's sometimes known. And these areas have increased biophotonic light particles that move and then send certain emissions for certain things that are responsible in our body. All right, and to give you an example, all right, the solar plexus chakra, which is the one between our heart and the middle and our belly button, our navel, that's in the middle there, when these biophotonic emissions occur and when our DNA and our cells start to send off this light, or send out this light to communicate as it does into our body. I mean, this is a light communicating something, all right? This is what's fascinating. It's not a neural signal. It's not a circulatory signal. It's not a sympathetic or parasympathetic signal. Or digestive. This is actually light, okay? And that light is sending a signal for our body to do something. Now, one of the ways this light sends a signal is it reacts either it can create an emotive reaction in us, or it's a bit of the chicken and the egg scenario. Do the emotions create the light to then signal? Okay. I encourage you, if you've got the time, to do some read up on biophotonics and the amazing research that, like I said, I talked about the research coming out of Seoul in Korea, but there is some incredible research coming out around it. I mean, I've got it open on my computer, some of it here to show you. It was in the 1960s that the first lot of studies were even done, in North Korea, for example, and they're extending on it even now. So some really awesome stuff coming up there. But this area come back to on track because I got distracted by the computer screen. The solar plexus, for example, is responsible when those biophotons fire or communicate or do something. They're responsible for our emotions in that area. Okay, they're also responsible for our creativity. So all those people that might be writers out there, when you get a writer's block, for example, this is the area of your body where your biophotonic light particles and within your cell, or I'm trying to find the right word to use. It's not a particle, it is a biophoton, that's what it's called. but the signal that it's sending out is maybe blocked, or it's really vibing really low. The frequency and the energy behind that signal is so low that your body's not responding to it. And so with our chakras, they're so important. Our chakras are also responsible for our organ health. All right, because you've got to imagine they're sending messages to our cells. So if you think about the organs in that same area of your solar plexus, you've got the stomach, you've got the liver, you've got, now you're going to test my anatomy, you've got things like your appendix if you've still got it in there, all coursing, you've got your lower back and the muscles that exist through there, you've got a lot, your diaphragm that is in that area and that space, that light is actually keeping healthy, for want of a better term, the cells in terms of their health. And they, the studies have found that when we are suffering disease or however, even sickness, then those biophoton signals increase. The cells start talking to each other faster. All right. And that's one of the ways they can actually pinpoint where there may be some kind of sickness occurring within your body. They do actually, through CT imaging, they're viewing the light. And so when we have these areas, these chakras within our body, they're responsible. They're all responsible for something going on in our body, or the way that area of the body functions and reacts. And the thing that is important with that is when we have our aura, which is outside of our body and it's constantly fluctuating, if our aura was to remain at a certain low frequency for a long period of time, then that would eventually, it's almost like a layer of protection to our inner chakras. It would eventually come through and affect that chakra. All right. And it could block or change the energy of that particular chakra. So it's kind of that first protection mechanism where it can fluctuate and change, and you can go about your day and you can meet people and you can react to them and then let them go. And, your energy is kind of doing this all day. But if you're constantly being bombarded, if that constant energy is low in your aura, it will then come through and change the vibration, the frequency of that chakra. And then what's happening is, because there's so many biophotonic signals occurring there, then it will start adjusting or impacting that area of your particular body. And we see this, you can see this in physical manifestations. The throat chakra is a really good example. When you start getting really sore shoulders or get that pain in the neck, and you can go and get a massage and it'll feel good for, a couple of hours, 24 hours, go to sleep, wake up the next morning and it's back again, because it's not muscular. That's actually, there's nothing wrong with the muscle. It's the signal to the cells that is being told or holding energy, that communication of that biophotonic signal is actually being held there, and it's causing this kind of dis-ease, okay? And it will eventually become something more if it is then not taken care of in whatever way. That's physical. It could go turn into a sore throat again, because it starts charging these biophotonic signals. They start processing faster, and as I just mentioned, research is showing that when they start communicating too fast, it's a sign of sickness. It can be disease in the cells, okay? So you can start to get that sore throat. It might be emotionally. You might find that you're finding it hard to communicate and actually use this part of your body, that we do for communication through the throat chakra, because the cells just aren't firing and signaling correctly. There's many reasons there, but that's an example of how your aura will be that first line of defense of energy of others or things or what's going on in your external environment, but it can eventually come through to affect your internal environment, which is your chakras. And then, of course, we have the third kind of area of energy in our body, from our aura to our chakra, is to then our what we call the meridians. So I like to refer to the meridians as like the energy highway, for want of a better term, throughout our body. And the beautiful thing about the meridians is that there is so much information on them if you wanted to look further into them, because so much of the Eastern understanding of medicine even originated from understanding where these meridian lines lay in our body. And I'm talking about things like Chinese medicine. Acupuncture is a really good example. You know, they get those little needles and they stick it in a certain spot and you feel it in your liver, you know, and you're like, oh, wow. Or they put one in your knee to help your ankle. It's you know, I would say bizarre, but it's not bizarre when you understand how they all work. So the meridians are kind of the highway that then move that energy all around your body. Okay, so hey Serena, how are you? And so the meridians, the beautiful thing, and I was talking about Korea, I've talked about Korea a bit today with their research, and even back into the 1960s when they were first studying and found the meridians, or the science, I'm talking about science, as in Western science, found the meridians. Obviously, we've known they've been there a lot longer than that. But it's only more recently that they have actually been able to inject a form of dye into the acupuncture points, okay, where Chinese medicine puts the acupuncture, and have actually seen the dye move down a line, which is fascinating. I mean, I find it absolutely amazing and fascinating. And they're realizing this isn't a point that's just under the skin or anything like that. They're actually seeing it as a clear kind of channel that is moving around and into particular organs. So science is starting to catch up and kind of bring the evidence and the proof to light of these meridians existing. But there are, in fact, they have identified, Chinese identified it years and years and years ago. I should say Asia identified it, not necessarily Chinese, because like I say, the Koreans have certainly been all over it, but they identified 12 main meridians. Okay, so when we talk about meridians, it's about 12 main ones. And these 12 meridians actually, as I mentioned earlier, connect our organs together. All right, so this is things like I talked a lot about in the first and second lives I've done about the heart-brain coherence, you know, and these two needing to be in perfect alignment for manifestation and intention and all those amazing things. And when, you know, it's the meridian that connects from our heart to this spot, the one that connects from all of our different organs, our gallbladder and our stomach and our liver, and they're all connected. And then there's these other, what they call 8 extraordinary meridians, which I think they're all pretty extraordinary, but these ones are called extraordinary meridians. And there's another 8 of them that they have since identified that don't actually connect anything. And they seem to be energy reservoirs, or the meridian that stores the energy, okay? And they can obviously pick, again, I'm coming back to biophotonic signals, they can pick up where these signals are kind of just holding the information in this light. And they're extremely important because in Chinese terminology or Asian terminology, they would call this yin and yang. They had the yin energy and the yang energy, and they moved in different meridians around the body. So, you know, there's so many things when we hear balance, we hear yin and yang, and we hear these terms, they're thrown around. But if you really look into them and find the research behind them, they really come back to a concrete thing happening within your body that you can go, oh my God, I get that. I get that. That yin and yang, I'm holding, you know, self-care allows those reservoirs, those 8 extraordinary meridians to hold my energy so that I can actually then use it throughout the day and keep it moving. So I mentioned acupuncture as one of those, hey Thelma, I mentioned acupuncture as one of those ways that they actually access the meridians to use them. And another amazing way, and there's actually a spirituality show that's done weekly on here if you haven't tuned in yet, on the spiritual events directory, of what they call tapping, or EFT, emotional frequency technique. And what that actually is, if you've ever seen anybody do this, if anyone's watched, there's a documentary on Netflix, if it's still on. I know there's different countries on watching this. I know it was in Australia or on Netflix in Australia recently. I had the pleasure of being on the Q&A panel for the launch in Brisbane when it was launched all around Australia. But it's the documentary called Heal. So Heal documentary. If you haven't watched it, please immediately go and watch it, or put it in your save list or whatever so that you can watch it later. And you'll see somebody actually actively getting EFT or tapping being done to help break an emotional release that's occurring for them with healing. But this is, you know, where you see them tapping on certain points and you wonder, why do they tap there? You know, what is it about these points that helps move that energy down or through? And what that is they're tapping into and on those meridian points, okay? And it's moving the energy. It's moving it. So, you know, one of the ways people say, well, how do I release the energy? I woke up this morning and I'm just already feeling angry, or I feel this. Tapping is a great way to do that. I encourage you to look further into that if that's something that interests you. I won't go into great detail because, like I said, there's a whole show every week that is done with one of the beautiful presenters on the Spirituality Show, and you can tune in at any time or go back and watch any of those replays with that talented soul, because they can really teach you some techniques for tapping. But you know, I tend to do tapping in the shower because, and I saw somebody mention here, I'm just scrolling back through because I don't want to miss that comment. Who was that? That said something about water being a way that we can release and keep energy. And, you know, I use, when I'm standing in the shower, that kind of release of water in the way that water is energizing the body, and I do tapping at the same time and do this kind of full energetic release in the shower. So, I mean, that's just one example and one way that you can certainly do it. But it's important to know, so these meridians are moving the energy around their body. Now, remember, energy is light. Energy is frequency, okay? Everything is energy. And we see energy as light. That's the way we can test it, okay? So we've got this energy moving around our body, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's gotten through the defense of our aura, okay? Because our aura is fluctuating, and then eventually we just get into a place where we've experienced it, especially that annoying coworker, for example, over and over and over again. They're at us and at us and at us and at us until eventually we just can't take it anymore, you know, and you get to that point where you're just like, oh my God, and they just we almost say wear down our defenses. Essentially, that's what's happening. It's their vibration, or that lower energy vibration, has slowly gotten through your aura, and it has changed it, and it's come in now and it's affected your chakra. It's been enough. Some people, however, experience trauma, and trauma is subjective. I say that every time. There is no trauma that is worse than other trauma. Trauma is subjective for everybody. But sometimes trauma can occur and it will go straight through into that place of that chakra and affect the energy and the responding signals of those biophoton light particles in that moment. And the reason that happens is because we have an emotive response. We're emotive beings, okay? And that can actually affect then the signals that are being sent out within that space for us. And then, of course, if that is so low, our meridians aren't flowing. You know, energetic highway is blocked. It's, you know, it's at a standstill. There's been a car pile up, and it's blocked and it's not flowing correctly. And so there's so many things that we can do to help clear that. And one of the ways that we do that, and I see Melanie said here that she's feeling so low. So Melanie, one of the ways that you can start to increase and lift your vibration, okay, is to start moving through those different places of energy in your body and lifting the vibration of them, okay? The meridians are one of the first places we can start, and we can do that with tapping, all right? We can actually start doing that with, you know, tap on those meridian points, okay? I will, at the end of this live, put up some links to some images and things like that where you can see where those meridian points are. And if you don't know, and you can, because I don't kind of want to hold up paper or start going, yeah, they're here and here, you know, but you can see where those 12 meridian points are and where they flow and run in your body, and just start tapping on them to move them, okay? Tapping alone is powerful because it's moving the energy. But what I also, when we connect that with our thought and our intention again, then we actually start to put intention behind where we're wanting that energy to go. All right, so we're trying to move this energy and get it flowing, but if we throw intention in behind that, and I say that off the cup, you know, throw it in there, but really start thinking about, you know, changing our wording. Louise L. Hay was amazing. She did, you know, the breakthrough of the way she got people to understand to change the wording. They call it like affirmation wording and positive affirmation wording, etc., can actually really shift and change your energy instantly. Okay, I've talked in depth about that before, so I don't want to go too much into it for those that may have already watched that already and be like, oh, she's repeating herself. But there really is power in our thought. Really is power in our thoughts. We can change the molecular structure of our cells just by thinking about it, okay? Science has proved that just by sending love to water, we can change the molecular structure of the cell of water. We've seen that. Dr. Emoto did that back in 1990, and it's been done to death since then in beautiful ways. Lynn McTaggart has done intention experiments right up until last year, and she's probably still doing them, showing how intention alone can change molecular structure. So when you are tapping and you're working on those meridians to get energy flowing, be mindful of the thoughts you're saying and the things that you're projecting and thinking when you're doing that. You know, we often say they will, you know, say bring the negative to mind, replace it with the positive, and tap it out. Tap it out. I can see there, you know, who's that replying? Shelley's saying, definitely love the shower meditation every day. That was, I mentioned, you know, using the water. One of the other ways, you know, water is, the minute I've read that, has connected me to nature. Okay, I've talked about in the past about Schumann energy, Schumann resonance, the way that the earth itself gives off negative ions, which positively, when we become stressed or when we're low, for example, Michelle, we end up positively ionized, and we need those negative ions to help balance and ground us again, and to even out our energy. This is brilliant for our chakras. Okay, so our chakras can be energized by being grounded, especially our lower chakras, and we can do that by getting into nature. The beautiful thing about getting into nature, and we say things like go hug a tree, okay, and there's reason for that, is because one, our aura starts interacting with the aura of plants. And plants are where they first identified the communication abilities of biophotons, of light. Light can communicate and transmit messages or information or data, or, you know, I guess they're still researching exactly what it is that it's sending. But it can actually send out this energy, everything's energy, and then we can absorb that energy from nature as well. It's pure, it's so pure, the energy that comes from the earth, from a tree, from a plant, from source, from water. And so we can use that to actually help ground and balance us as well. There are, with our chakras though, when we start looking into that energy, there are in fact elements that will impede the healing or the balancing of these areas. And of course that is mental and emotional for us as well, energy that exists in our body, because our mental and our emotional energy will be moving through those meridians, okay, and impacting and affecting that as well. Again, we keep those meridians moving. The thing with keeping the meridians moving is if that energy is emotional energy, it can keep us quite heightened emotively. And so there's lots and lots of ways that we can remove that energy. And this is where healing really comes. You know, we talk about the healing journey, and it is a journey, because you can't just go, yeah, that happened, I'm all good. You can't just actually do that, because you need to acknowledge it in order to release it. And unless you're actually really facing what's occurred, acknowledging that it's occurred, then letting it go, saying, I don't wish to hold on to that energy anymore, then that is where the healing journey comes into it. And as I mentioned, trauma is subjective, and some trauma is that intense that that's not an instant process. Especially mentally, you know, if we're getting into a place of where our mental faculties may have shifted or changed, and then we throw in chemical imbalances that are occurring in our body as a result of that, then obviously there is a lot more involved journey that can take place with that. But we can start by getting our chakras balanced, get that wheel of light flowing correctly, okay, as it should, in a nice even pace. And you know, you've probably heard it from a million people before, but one of the best ways to do that is meditation. I mentioned heart brain coherence earlier, and I saw somebody go, yes, I do that each morning. You know, meditate. We have to get out of our heads and slow our breathing down, connect into our bodies, and allow that energy and the cells to calm down and slow down. Because we move our bodies, we spend so much time in the sympathetic nervous system. Okay, that's how we go about our days, especially when we are living these crazy, hectic, stressful lives that we live. You know, and we're constantly releasing these chemical hormones into our body that are stressors. which means our biophotons are firing faster, which means they're moving too fast. They can make our chakras overactive or underactive or block our meridians. You can see how this is like a roll-on, flow-on effect. When you understand what's happening to your body, why your energy is responding that way, or why you're responding to your energy, more to the point. And so when we can slow our body down and allow it to flow into the parasympathetic nervous system, actually move it out into that calm state, the state where we're not feeling like we're in constant danger. You know, we're not wondering, do we need to move? Do I need to run now? Do we need to, one of the things that I find so fascinating, and I was just actually spending time today reading the latest research on this, was that we are the only species alive that chooses voluntarily to change our breathing. Okay, every other species and animal alive only changes its breathing based on its responsive its responses or its responsive ability. It will start breathing harder and faster when it's running. We can do that voluntarily without actually being in that state. And what actually occurs is when an animal, for example, changes its breathing because its heart rate increases, it's all physiological, right? But they change their breathing based on that physiological response. They do so and it alters and changes their brain. There's whole lots going on. The brain's telling oxygen to be sent into, pull away from its extremities, send it into the heart to make it be able to run faster, to, when we voluntarily change our breathing, I'm not having a physiological response, but I can start panting and breathing faster and having that, making my breathing as if I was running. I can change my brain. My brain will start to pull blood from my extremities because I can actually voluntarily change my brain. And I say me, I mean us, we collectively, human beings, okay? And the fact that we can do that means we can also do the opposite. We can do that for good. And so slowing our breathing down is one of the most amazing ways to change our brain and start getting our energy to slow down, to focus, and to allow it to just move and de-stress. That's the first part, de-stress, okay? Allow those stress hormones to start to be released from our cells and breathe through our body and release, and you can release that with earth and through water and grounding and vibration and all sorts of things. But we need to start with that. And meditation is one of those ways that we force our body to do that. If you're not somebody who can sit still for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, if you're just not somebody who can do that, okay, don't have time in the day, I get it. I get how busy life can be, especially if you've got children, then you can mindfully do it. And I've mentioned this before, but every red light that I get to, and it's become so habitual for me now, I do it without realizing, whenever I am stopped at a red light, I box breathe, okay? And for those that don't know what box breathing is, it's when you inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold for 4, and then just continue that kind of cycle of 4. I think it was, what's that boy band, One Direction. It was one of the blokes from One Direction. I was listening to an interview once on the TV, and he suffers severe anxiety, severe stage fright anxiety. You wouldn't know it seeing him out there, and the attention, certainly the millions of fans that they would encounter on a daily basis. And it was box breathing that used to get him through every show. He would spend 2 or 3 minutes box breathing before he walked out on stage. And it's that as Loz is saying here, that awareness of your breath that can be life-changing. And it can be life-changing because it can focus your energy to do what it's meant to do, okay? And when our energy is doing what it's meant to do, then it's called homeostasis. When we're in the parasympathetic nervous state, it will begin to self-heal, okay? Self-heal. There's that word heal again. Homeostasis is the body's natural ability to self-heal, okay? So we want to enact that in our bodies. It happens even more effectively when we're in at least theta brainwave, okay? Gamma brainwave, super gamma brainwave works as well. But theta brainwave, it happens even more effectively, which is where if you are an active meditator, you can often move your brain into that theta brainwave state to actually allow and increase that awareness of breath and that state for our bodies. And then, of course, miraculously, when our chakras are flowing lovely, we give off this incredible electromagnetic field, okay? Which means that our aura then cleanses and our aura then heals. The way we feel internally is reflected externally at all times. All right. And that's important to remember. It's why you can sometimes meet somebody and you just don't like them. It's nothing about them. They're not doing anything per se that you can identify, you know, oh, they did this or they said this. But that's why it can sometimes actually just be because who they are inside is projected externally through energy, and you can pick up on that. You know, dogs are great for doing that. They'll know straight up if a person's legit or not, you know. And so those forms of energy, or those places of energy in our body, are important to remember when we are in a state or when we are feeling low or when we're vibing low. I have mentioned before ways that we can balance and ways that we can, Namrata's saying she's trying to box breathe right now. Good on you, Namrata. I do sit at the red traffic lights and I box breathe until they turn green again. And then I go. Because by then I kind of go, and before you know it, you're back into shallow breathing anyway. But the more you can become mindfully aware, the more that small act will even start to change your life, when you can slow your breath down and bring that breath into your belly. Okay, it can do amazing, miraculous, wonderful things. There is so much science happening right now about the proof behind a lot of what I am saying to you now. I'd love to kind of throw some of these, and if you jump on so Belinda Hayes, the spiritual teacher, on the description of this video and this live is all of my links, okay, for how you can connect with me. So you can connect on my Facebook page, Belinda Hayes, the spiritual teacher, my personal profile there, Belinda Hayes. If you want to friend me and follow me that way, you're more than welcome to. I have a personal Facebook group that I share a lot of stuff where we can really just talk openly and help and support each other, and that's called the Souls Collective. So please feel free to find that and add yourself into that group, and I can approve you. And because it's a beautiful place, and we share some amazing stuff in there. And it's not just me, you know. I don't claim to know it all, and so I love when other people are sharing tidbits that enlighten me as well, because that's how we continue to learn and embrace it. You know, Thelma's saying here that she loves that science is finally catching up, and I couldn't agree with you more. That I had the pleasure of attending the Science and Spirituality Conference of last year. Was it 2018 I went? What are we to? No, it was this year. God, gee, this year's been amazing. And yeah, it was this year. I went to the Science and Spirituality Conference, on Vancouver Island in Canada. And I'd never been to Vancouver Island before, which was wonderfully exciting. So I got to experience that part of the world in a beautiful little place called Nanaimo. And, Dr. Bruce Lipton was there, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden was there, Lynn McTaggart, Lee Carroll was there, channeling Cryon for any of you that are familiar with who he is, and bringing through some incredible knowledge about Lemuria and the Lemurian teaching wheel that I see he is just starting to put out as a book and everything at the moment, which is very, very exciting because there's some good stuff there. But it was a full week, that conference, and it was fascinating to see how much is being done, what the new current research is on bridging that gap. You know, for years, science was over here and spirituality was over here. And even now, spirituality is still classed as a pseudoscience. But slowly, that bridge is coming back together. And, you know, I often think sitting somewhere in between there is this thing called religion. And even that as well is starting to come all together, religion, science, and spirituality, to kind of become this one understanding. And to me, that's amazingly beautiful. You know, I have 2 young children. They are, how old are my kids? 9 and 7. And, you know, they go to a Catholic school simply because we have certainly in Australia, we have kind of 3 types of education. We have private school, we have state school, and then we have in between is our religious education. So I can't quite afford private school, but I wanted them to have something more than our public system offers, and so they do go to a Catholic school. I'm Catholic. Oh, well, I'm baptized Catholic. I'm spiritual. That's what I am. I believe in God being source, the universe. And so for even when my kids are coming home and some of the things that they talk about in the classroom, my daughter is in year 4 this year, but from prep to year 3, they meditated every morning. They didn't use the word prayer. They used the word meditation. They introduced prayer as a concept in grade 4 at their school, so that they can understand that prayer and meditation are the same things, which I find amazing in this day and age. And my mum was raised by the nuns. She went to one of those schools that was run by the nuns, and I'm telling you, they wouldn't have used the word meditation back then. No way. But they are. It's about that setting of intention. It's about that slowing down of your mind to shut everything out and to connect with source, whether to you that is your angels, your guides, your God. I don't want to kind of put words in anybody's mouth as to what they refer to that as, but they can all be one and the same thing, which is really beautiful, and that bridge is really happening. So hey Jenny, nice to see you, darling. Definitely go back and watch. So it has been, it is, God, look at the time. It's been amazing, as always, chatting to you guys. I love connecting. I said it before, find me. Go back and have a look at those links, and let's connect outside of the week we get to do these lives. I do go live every Wednesday night from 8:30 to 9:30, as you can see if you're on live with me tonight. Otherwise, there's always, if you're watching this via the replay, then certainly welcome to join us live next week so that you can put any of your comments or questions up. If you've got anything in particular that you're absolutely dying for me to talk about or cover, please PM me or pop it in these comments, and I'll come back and check them before next week, because I'd absolutely love to make sure I'm covering what is relevant for you guys. Melanie's saying, why does my mind never stop? Melanie, one of the hardest things we can learn to do is shut our mind up. And I'd encourage you to go back and watch my very first live. If you haven't had a chance to, go back and watch it. I talk about understanding the heart-brain coherence and how when we can still our mind, and ways and techniques to do that, how powerful that can be for us. So go back and watch that. If not, I'll try and cover a little bit more for that in some future lives for you as well, for those that may have missed it. So a huge thanks. You're welcome, Loz, and you're welcome, Lisa. I love you guys. Shannon, I'm glad you found it interesting. And feel into your energy this week, guys. Spend some time really thinking about when you feel that change. And it can be like you're going about your day, and if you're anything like me, you can be going about your day and then all of a sudden you're cranky. Nobody's done anything. Nobody's said anything. It's not that time of the month. You're cranky, right? I have to sometimes sit there and go, and I have a bit of a code word I use with my kids, and I have a beautiful healing space here, and I call it my crystal room, and I say to them, I just need 5 minutes in the crystal room, guys. And that's my moment to just check in with my body and go, what's going on? What's going on? Sometimes it's not my stuff. Like I said, I'm clairsentient, and it might be one of my kids, or I can often connect into my family members and all sorts of things remotely now without necessarily wanting to. But, I can sit there and go, oh, wow, I was just listening to that, or something that somebody just said on the phone's triggered me, and it's brought up this, little bit of anger, or it's brought up, and I can feel where that energy is coming from in my body, and then remove it and release it, or tap it out as well. I might just need to sit and ground myself for a moment to let that go. But it's so important that we really start to connect into that, where the energy is in our body, where it's flowing and where it's not, and take the time to keep ourselves balanced and open and flowing, so that we're constantly communicating the best way out we possibly can. I mean, I would, Janet said, thank you, you're welcome, Janet. I would never want to run into Janet and have my biophotons communicating to her unless they were sending out the most pure, amazing, perfect light possible. And that's what I aim to do every single day, and how I aim to live my life is to make sure my cells are as healthy as they can be, to send out the healthiest signals possible for other people to receive. So if we can all do that, I feel like I'm on fashion pageant at the moment. You know, I just want world peace. I really do. And it is possible. We just have to want it, you know. Every single person whose lives we change, or our own lives, just creates that ripple effect, and it can have such a beautiful, beautiful effect on the world. And I really want to be around to see it. You know, we only have to look at what's going on in Hong Kong, and has been for the last 10 weeks, to see how powerful we can be as a collective unit of people. So anyway, there's a little bit of of B says. So I love you guys, and I will see you same bat time, same bat channel next week at 8:30 for the Spirituality Show with Belinda Hayes, the spiritual teacher. So take care, and until then, I'll see you real soon. Love you guys. Bye.